to me your secrets. Show me your nightmares. All cats are gray in the dark, dear, whether or not you dare.
Welcome to All Cats Are Gray in the Dark. I'm your host, April Simmons. This podcast contains true cases of graphic violent crimes and other stories of a dark nature. Please be advised that due to the subject matter and violent, sometimes sexual content and obscene language, this podcast is not for children or the faint of heart.
All right, we're back again. Episode 6.
Welcome back, everyone.
I'm not sure why I had to make a song out of that, but story of my life. Today we have for you a completely unresearched list of famous unsolved cases because we had to re-record and I slapped something together so that we'd have another episode recorded. So my apologies because we have no research on this whatsoever.
Sometimes
just a list.
improv is okay. You can just go down the list and we say what we think.
So probably going to have some pauses too because we're going to have to look some stuff up. Number 1, this is in no certain order, by the way, because I just threw together this list from other lists.
And these are unsolved cases.
Yeah, these are unsolved cases. Right? Some are missing people and some are just are murders and vice, et cetera, et cetera.
We need Robert Stack to be here to be our third co-host for this. Yeah, we're in his voice.
We need Nora to practice her impression of Robert Stack, so we should get her to do stuff for us. Okay. Actually, don't tell her that. She probably totally would.
Okay.
She probably would totally
She probably would.
First case I have wrote down is Jon Benet Ramsey. How do you feel about that?
That's one of the saddest cases that I remember of missing persons. I mean, right up there with Adam Walsh. Anytime that there's a child that's missing or murdered, it just, as a mother, it really, really pulls at my heartstrings, the feeling of the loss. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. And not that adults are any less heartbreaking, but when it's a child, it's like their lives are gone and they didn't have a chance to grow up. And it just, I can't imagine how parents feel when suddenly they go to check on their child and they're not there. They're missing. Although in the Jon Benet case, for a long time, I suspected her parents.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much everybody.
But, DNA evidence came up that there was a DNA on her body that did not match anyone in the family. And that's the only thing that made me think, okay, maybe it wasn't her dad. I thought that her mother wrote the ransom note. For a long time, the police thought that the mother wrote the ransom note. And I thought that that's what happened. And then the father, who might have been, an incestuous pedophile or something like that, ended up killing her to shut her up from telling. That was always my theory in the back of my mind. But then when the DNA evidence came up that there was someone that was not related to her that had DNA on her, it made me wonder, okay, well, maybe not. But it's one case. That's the other thing that's so troublesome and bothersome about this, besides the fact that it was a child that was murdered, is that it's unsolved. There'll never be closure on this.
A lot of people theorize that it was Burke, the brother.
But he was only 9 years old.
I know.
At the time of her death. And she had a skull fracture and was strangled to death. And I'm sure if he was like a big, strong 9-year-old, there's some, husky 9-year-olds out there, boys that probably could do that. But I see this more as an adult killing a child.
Yeah. I know one of the suspects was the guy that played Santa Claus or something.
At the party, right. They were having a big party that night. And she was found in the basement 8 hours. That was the other thing that really boggled my mind is she went missing and they didn't find her body for 8 hours. Okay, if my child is missing, the first thing that I am going to do is, of course, search the house. Everywhere in the house. Closets, attics, basements. And she was found in the basement 8 hours later.
Do you know about the Mississippi connection to this case?
I do not.
The guy that had confessed.
I remember there was a confession from a guy, and it turned out that he was...
I think it was either Aberdeen or
yes,
Amory.
I did hear that was in the paper.
He was a transgender person now.
Right.
I'm not sure if he's still there, because I had actually considered trying to contact that person for an interview or something for the show.
I'm not sure if
he's still there or not.
And I'm not sure how receptive he is to giving out interviews. Being that, he is who he is. They did
an interview.
I know the newspaper.
When she first moved in.
Right.
They did do an interview, and I'm not sure how that went, but I read the interview, and I don't know, there's just something off about that person in general. I don't necessarily know that. Obviously, the police didn't think that he did it because there was something that wasn't jiving in his story or whatever, but
I think she more wanted, it was an attention thing.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people that will make false confessions just for the notoriety of it all. Which I find both fascinating and so weird. Why would you confess to a murder that you did not commit? I don't get that at all.
But maybe if anybody listening has a connection to that person, let us know, because I would love to do an interview and get their side of the story. Anyway. Alright, next on the list is Black Dahlia. What do you think about that case?
I think it was the surgeon.
The surgeon guy, the one that... was it the son or something?
I think it was the son that... the surgeon had actually been dead for many years, and the son came forward and said, I think my dad did it.
Well, they even found pictures that they thought might be her.
Right. And the cuts on her were so surgically precise, I could 100% think that that's what it would be.
Yeah. I pretty much generally think that it was probably the surgeon. And if it was somebody else, we're probably never going to know at this point.
No, the case is so old. Yeah. Wasn't that like the 40s?
I believe so.
1947. Yeah.
All right. Next on our list is Jack the Ripper.
So many theories on that one. I love the theory. I don't think it's the right theory, but I love the theory that it was the prince.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you're a prostitute and you're in an alleyway and suddenly the fucking prince comes up to you and you think that you're going to get lucky and you're going to be a princess and he's going to fuck you and fall in love with you, and next thing you know, you could possibly end up being the queen someday, and instead you get your fucking throat slashed. I don't think it was the prince.
I think my favorite theory is the Lewis Carroll one, the guy that wrote
Alice in Wonderland. Yeah,
because he fit the profile.
He was crazy. He was certifiably
he had, like, mother
crazy.
issues and stuff. Like
right.
I think his mother was a prostitute, possibly.
I
Don't
think
quote
so,
me on
yeah.
that, but I think he was. I think we even discussed this on a previous episode.
Mm.
When we were talking about places to go. I would totally love to go to Whitechapel.
Really?
And
Okay.
go to that, but
I had not heard that theory before you mentioned it that time with Jack the Ripper. And then...
But I actually, contrary to other cases, I really think they do have some DNA on file for Jack
do they?
the Ripper.
Of Jack the Ripper?
And with the familial DNA making headway in a lot of cases, I think it's possible they may actually end up solving it.
That would be phenomenal if they solved it in this day and time. In this era. Because that was early 1800s? Mid 1800s?
I can't remember the exact dates. I think it ended in the early 1900s, so late 1800s.
I think so, yeah.
And that's if you don't believe the theory that, because some people think that the reason the killing stopped is because the killer came to America. There's also a theory that H.H. Holmes is Jack the Ripper.
Really?
Yes, because
I have not heard that one either.
He actually traveled over there and stuff. So during that time period, so people think that he might have done it.
1888 to 1891 is what Wikipedia says, with a question mark next to 1891.
Well, I guess that's for if you believe that there were more.
Right. Patricia Cornwell wrote a book theorizing on it.
I think I actually read that one, but I don't remember that much about it.
Yeah.
So I can't really quote anything from it because I don't really remember.
Right. It's an interesting case, being that one is unsolved, but two, there were so many suspects. Everybody from the prince to, again, a surgeon to, Carol. So it's just because the thought of that is so far out there, yet still possible.
Yeah. All right. Next one on the list is the Love Me Tender murders. You heard about that one before?
I have not, but I just wikied it. It says the murder of the Grimes sisters is currently an unsolved double murder dating from December 28th, 1956, when two sisters named Barbara and Patricia Grimes, aged 15 and 12 respectively, disappeared while traveling from a movie theater in the Brighton Park neighborhood of Chicago to their McKinley Park home. Their disappearance initiated one of the largest missing persons investigations in the history of Chicago. The girls' nude bodies were discovered alongside a deserted road in Willow Springs on January 22nd, 1957. So they were missing 6 days shy of a month before their bodies were found, and they never had a suspect. Although the sisters' autopsy reports concluded that they had been murdered within 5 hours of their last confirmed sighting, and that both girls had died of secondary shock, numerous individuals attested to having seen the girls alive in the weeks between the night of December 28th and the discovery of their bodies. The murder of the Grimes sisters has been described by authors as a crime which shattered the innocence of Chicago. The case is also acknowledged as one of the most labor-intensive missing person and murder investigations in Cook County and remains one of Chicago's most infamous cold cases. That is really interesting to me. So the autopsy concluded that they had been murdered within 5 hours of the last time that they were seen, but they weren't found for almost a month.
The 50s and the forensics have changed a lot too. True. So that could be completely wrong.
It very well could be, yeah.
Could be, and it could be weather-based too, because it's winter, so their bodies would have been more preserved.
Well, I'm thinking the secondary shock comes in with, that's January in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
They were found nude. That's cold. I mean, you're gonna die of being hypothermia of the shock from the cold. But then it also says murder, so yeah, that's crazy. I have not heard of that one.
Have you ever heard of the Lead Mask Men? That's the next on the list.
I haven't, but again, I wikied that one. And it was a series of events which led to the death of two Brazilian electronic technicians, Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Manuel Jose Viana, who had last been seen by their family on August 17th, 1966. Their bodies were discovered on August 20th, 1966, so they'd been missing for 3 days, and the cause of their death has never been determined. On the afternoon of August 20th, 1966, a young man was flying a kite on the Morro de Vitium, I'm totally mispronouncing that, close to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, when he came upon the bodies of two deceased males and reported them to authorities. The Morro de Vitium had difficult terrain, and the police were unable to reach the bodies until the next day. When a small team of police and firefighters arrived, they encountered an odd scene. The bodies rested next to each other, partly covered by grass. Each wore a formal suit, a lead-eye mask, and waterproof coat. There were no signs of trauma or any evidence of a struggle next to the corpses. Police found an empty water bottle and a packet containing 2 wet towels. A small notebook was also identified which were written the cryptic instructions: be at specific location at 1630, at 1830 ingest capsules, after the effect protect metals and await signal mask. The two men were identified as Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, two electronic technicians from Campos de Goytiaquizia, can't do that, a town several kilometers to the northeast of Rio de Janeiro. Following the investigation, police reconstructed a plausible narrative on the men's last days. On August 17th, Cruz and Viana left Campos dos Goytiaquizes with a stated intent that they needed to purchase some materials for work. The two men then boarded a bus to Nitriol and arrived at 2:30 p.m. Evidence shows that the waterproof coats were purchased at a shop there and one bottle of water from a local bar. Upon being interviewed, the waitress from the bar described Miguel as very nervous and noticed he frequently checked his watch. That's the last time that they were known to have been seen alive, and it's presumed that they went directly from the bar to the spot in which they were discovered. No obvious injuries were discovered at the scene, nor later on autopsy. A search for toxic substances did not occur. The coroner's office was very busy at the time, and when the autopsy was finally conducted, the internal organs of the two victims were too badly decomposed for reliable testing.
So what's your theory?
They got struck by lightning.
Really?
It makes me wonder, was there
some kind of visible?
Well, yeah, I didn't think about that. Usually when you're struck by lightning, there's burn marks. Is it bad that my first thought after reading that was the scene in Heathers where they took the two guys out in the woods?
Imposed them.
Yeah.
I love my dead gay son.
I love my dead gay
that's
son.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
Me too.
I guess I'm sadistic, but I just love that fucking movie.
It's a great movie. I wonder, I mean, he was nervous at the bar. And the only thing that makes me think that they weren't just gay lovers that had gone out there because, water bottle to rehydrate, wet towels.
Time and everything.
But the note is what throws everything in this case off to me.
And a specific time. A lot of people theorize that they were waiting to be taken by UFOs or something. That they thought they were going to be taken up by UFOs. But I don't know. I'm not sure on that.
That's what is up with the lead mask on their eyes? I don't it's know. Another thing. It's like conductor of electricity is a meteorologist that said, that knew it was going to storm and lightning that day. But again, lightning would leave evidence. So
I don't know. It's just a weird case.
Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense to me.
I'm the one that put that one on the list just because I thought that one was fascinating.
It's quite...
Next, I don't think we probably need to Wikipedia this. We both know enough about it to bullshit anyway.
Okay.
Zodiac.
Oh, yeah.
Zodiac killer. Do you think it was Arthur Lee Allen, or do you think they just haven't found him yet?
I think it's a possibility that it is him, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking he hasn't been caught. I don't think he'll ever be caught. I really don't.
I have a personal theory with somebody we know, but I'm not going to tell you the name. You know who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Somebody that lived in that area during that time period. Think about it real fucking hard.
Not smart enough, though, dude.
You think?
Absolutely not smart enough. No.
I still think it's possible, but yeah.
Definitely
crazy enough.
Definitely psychotic enough. Yeah, sociopath through and through, but I've never really honestly thought about that. But again, not smart enough.
And if he ever listens to this, he's going to be so pissed that you said that,
he's a sociopathic, pedophile, molester, evil being, but he's not smart enough to be the Zodiac killer. No.
That's funny. Next on the list, we're just going to skip over that. We're just going to say we don't think he's been caught. We don't have a specific theory, but we just don't think he's been caught yet.
No, he's out there.
Maybe someday.
Probably too old now to keep killing. And when was the last murder of his? I think it was in the 70s. I think it's.
he either reinvented himself, moved, or died. You know? But you know, some killers do adapt, and they're like, I'm going to get caught if I keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, so they stop.
So they do something different.
Right. And he could have been caught doing something else, and that's why the murder stopped. Whoever it was could have been caught, you know, doing some other felony and went to prison for something else, and that's why they stopped.
Next one is D.B. Cooper.
Love that case.
You probably know about it more than I do. I know about it, but I don't know a lot about it. I know that he jumped from a plane. He basically hijacked a plane and jumped from
I think it was something
money.
like $2 million on him.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah. And was never found.
And they found some of the money.
I was going to say they found some of the money.
Of it.
Yeah.
And they didn't find him or his remains. So, did he live? Did he live out his life? And
I remember reading something a long time ago where they thought that they had found his remains, but then it ended up being like a missing hiker or something. So, and I mean, they're not even, they named him that. He's an unidentified, actually. They just call him D.B. Cooper. He's an unidentified man who hijacked a Boeing 727. Do you know how big a Boeing 727 is? So he hijacks this aircraft in the northwest United States in the airspace between Portland and Seattle on November 24th, 1971. He purchased the airline ticket. I'm doing wiki again just in case someone hasn't heard this story before. The man purchased the airline ticket using the alias Dan Cooper, but because of a news miscommunication, became known in popular lore by the media as D.B. Cooper. He extorted $200,000 in ransom, equivalent to $1.2 million in 2018, and parachuted to an uncertain fate. Despite the extensive manhunt and protracted FBI investigation, the perpetrator has never been located or identified. It remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in the commercial aviation history. The dude looks like my fucking grandfather. Looking at this picture, the dude looks like my grandfather, who was a pilot.
D.B. Cooper.
My grandfather.
We just solved a mystery now.
My grandfather was actually a pilot for Howard Hughes. He worked for the Howard Hughes Corporation and was actually on the Spruce Goose, Howard Hughes's plane, when it took its first flight. But looking at this picture, this guy looks a lot like but my grandfather was spotted after 1971, so I don't think it was him. But it's a very interesting case because you hijack a 727 and then you jump out of it.
I guess
with almost $2 million.
What's weird about this case? Most of our cases, you do not root for the bad guy, but in this case, you're like, I kind of hope he did live and get away with all that money.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't hurt anybody either. He didn't kill anybody. He the almost $2 million. Yeah, it wasn't his. Okay, but it was a monetary crime. It wasn't, he didn't hurt anybody. He didn't kill anybody. So
it's like
I kind of root for him.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, I hope he made it.
That's
with
the
all
one.
the money.
Yeah, that's the one. That's a catch me if you can type, situation. Yeah. I enjoy that story, and I do root for him. I hope he made it and got away.
Yeah. Next on the list is Amelia Earhart. We just spoke about her a little bit.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something more to the story we're not getting. I don't feel like she just disappeared. I think somebody had to come across her at some point, alive or dead. I just have this gut. I have no factual basis for this theory, but I think she came across some kind of tribe or something that was not partial to women, or somebody that just didn't like her in general. Because, I believe she was bi also. She was doing something that women, according to the status quo at that time, should not be doing. She was doing a man's job.
This was 1937.
I think somebody took her out because she was too big for her britches. No, like that kind of thing. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that that's my theory.
Yeah, well, she was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. She departed from Papua New Guinea. Well, New Guinea has cannibal tribes.
Yeah. But that's what I think.
Or did at the time. I'm not saying they do now.
She
That's
either
possible.
ended up getting killed by some tribe where she landed.
That sounds very logical.
Or somebody found her and didn't want her to go back to civilization and took her ass out because they did not like her and her ideals and what she represented.
That very well could be.
That's my theory. I don't have a specific theory of who.
A lot of people go along with the theory of Bermuda Triangle swallowed her up.
Yeah.
But she was not anywhere around there when she took off.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's always fascinated me, though.
Yeah, I know. Even, like, I was always thinking about it during childhood and stuff. I think we're about due for a break. So, here's a word from somebody we don't know who yet.
Do you like podcasts? Do you like cats? Do you like podcasts named after a cat and contains extremely vulgar humor? If so, I have a show for you! Hi, I'm Justin Kyle, host of the Mistah Whiskah's Clubhouse podcast, and I'd like to welcome you to the Clubhouse.
Oh, I'm gonna fart really bad. Alright, so I kind of push, and I felt something drip down my leg. Oh. It kind of blew my mind that you've never heard of a fleshlight before.
The fuck are you waiting for? Mistah Whiskah's Clubhouse is available on all your favorite podcast apps. iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and many more. Or just simply go to www.mwcpodcast.podbean.com. Meow, bitch.
Back from the break again.
Welcome back, everyone.
Next on our list is Tara Calico. Tell us a little bit about that.
Wikipedia says that Tara Lee Calico, born February 28, 1969, is an American woman who disappeared near her home in Belen, New Mexico on September 20th, 1988, so she would have been about 19 years old. She is widely believed to have been kidnapped, and in July 1989, a Polaroid photo of an unidentified young woman and boy, both bound and gagged, was televised to the public after it was found in a convenience store parking lot. Family friends thought that the woman resembled Calico and contacted her mother, who then met with investigators and examined the Polaroid. She believed it was her daughter after taking time, growth, and lack of makeup into consideration, and noticed that a scar on the woman's leg was identical to the one that Calico had. Scotland Yard analyzed the photo and concluded that the woman was Calico, but a second analysis by the Los Alamos National Laboratory disagreed, and FBI analysis of the photo was inconclusive. Her case received extensive coverage on television programs such as A Current Affair, Unsolved Mysteries, and America's Most Wanted. It was also profiled on the Oprah Winfrey Show in 48 Hours. As of 2017, no arrests have been made and the case remains open. Okay, so I've got a theory on this one. Belen, New Mexico is about 100 miles from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Truth or Consequences, New Mexico is home to the Toy Box Killer.
Interesting.
He is suspected to have killed up to 60 women. Most of them whose bodies have never been found.
And he was active during that time period. That's interesting. I've never heard that mentioned.
It's just, when I saw New Mexico, that's the first thing that came up, and I saw the years, I was like, let me look up how far that is away from Truth or Consequences, and it's about 100 miles. And he would go as far up as Colorado and as far over as Arizona sometimes to find victims. And that being only 100 miles away, that's a theory. That's just a theory that I have. And being that she was never found and a lot of his victims were never found.
Do you think the picture of her family thinks
I do.
it is? The FBI, I think, was
From her school picture and the picture of the Polaroid next to each other, I do. And the being identical scar on her leg and her mother, a mother knows their baby. No matter what the age, a mother knows her baby. And if the mother says that that's her, then that's her.
Yeah. I think the FBI said that it was kind of inconclusive. They couldn't decide if it was or was not her. They weren't.
Yeah, I don't really trust the FBI on a lot of things, though.
But
they're
if
just
you look
they're
at
just
that
humans.
picture and you look at previous pictures of her, it's pretty eerie.
It looks a lot
I
like
highly
her.
recommend you
Yeah.
go look up that picture because it's just creepy that somebody would just randomly find that somewhere. I mean, it would freak me out if I found that somewhere.
It's just a very scary picture anyway, that you can see the terror in their faces. And who's the boy? Was there a case of a missing
kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has the boy not ever been identified?
I'm not sure.
I was trying to figure out what that book is next to her. I can't.
It's a V.C. Andrews, but I think it's Flowers in the Attic.
I was thinking it looks like Flowers in the Attic. Yeah.
I think the mother even said that was another thing that convinced her because she was a heavy reader or something.
Mm.
I believe so. Don't quote me on that. I've heard that somewhere. All right, the next case is the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. Have you heard of that one?
I know I've heard about it, but I don't know much in depth about it.
Well, it happened June 13th, 1977, and the reason I find that out is because that's 2 days after I was born.
Oh, wow.
In Mays County, Oklahoma, 3 Girl Scouts between the ages of 8 to 10 were raped and murdered. And their bodies were left on the trail leading to the showers about 150 yards from their tent at summer camp. It was classified as solved. They arrested because they had Gene Leroy Hart, a local jail escapee with a history of violence. He was arrested, but then he was acquitted when he stood trial for it.
Any reason why he was acquitted? Lack of evidence?
I'm assuming. I'll look at that in just a second. But I just wanted to say Lori Lee Farmer, age 8, Michelle Heather Buse, age 9, and Doris Denise Milner, age 10. So I wanted to say the victims' names and ages for everybody.
That's, again, child kidnappings and missing persons and murders, to me, are just the worst.
I know,
They're
really sad.
so sad.
The DNA test, they did some DNA testing in 2008, but it was inconclusive. Basically, let me see here. I think by the time we're going to do another trial, Hart was dead, so.
Well, if he did it, good.
Yeah, so.
And it sounds like he was the top suspect if he was.
But he had been convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women, as well as 4 counts of first-degree burglary, and he was raised about a mile from the camp.
Oh, so he was very familiar with the area.
Yeah, so he was familiar with the area.
I'm gonna say that that's your man right there.
So, but I guess we won't ever have
never know.
official answers.
And that's gonna be the worst, too, as a parent, is, I mean, I hate to say I'm glad that they found the bodies. I'm glad it's not a forever missing, because I think I would rather know where my child is than just forever wonder. But at the same time, knowing that they were murdered, but not knowing
my
who it
question
was.
Was it one man, though? Because it was
How many
3
was it?
girls.
3 girls.
3 girls raped and murdered. Did he tie them up while he raped the others? And could he get it up that many times in a row? I mean, let's face it, that's
it's a, man,
a feat.
Yeah.
But
I didn't think about that more than one.
But I'm not saying that.
And that's something that's always made me wonder, too, if it was more than one. Again, like going back to the toy box killer and such, he had accomplices. Where do these people find each other? That they're so evil and so devious that
ChristianMangle.com. No, I'm kidding.
You never know with sites like that. But I mean, and this is before, the internet even. How do these people end up finding one another that they're so devious that they commit these absolutely heinous crimes?
Was there a precursor to ChristianMingle.com, or is that just church?
Just church. Yeah.
I'm going to hell for that one. I'm sorry.
It's something that's always made me wonder. Serial killers, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole, together. The toy box killer and his wife, Paul, can't think of his last name right now, Bernardos or whatever. These, where do they find one another? It blows my mind how serial killers find one another and do things like that together.
But I'm guessing because of just circumstantial evidence that guy at least had a part in it.
Had to have.
But he had to have some buddies or something involved in that. I just don't see this being a lone man thing. And that's sad because that means those people
are
might
still out
be
there.
out there.
Right.
So.
That's a scary thought. But they say 1 in 100 people are serial killers. I don't know how factual that is. It's just something that I heard before that made me go, that's kind of scary that 1 in 100 people in the United States have killed somebody. And not just one person, because a serial killer means 3 or more. And to say 1 in 100 are serial killers, that means that somebody we know is a serial killer. Again, I don't know how factual that is, but if it is factual, that's super scary.
Oh, next on the list is Roanoke Colony. Have you ever heard of that?
Roanoke from, like, the Salem days, Roanoke?
Yeah, it's one of the first colonies.
Okay.
And the whole colony disappeared.
Yeah! I'd forgotten about that case. I remember reading something about it years ago when I was still in high school. How does an entire village just disappear?
I don't know, but I'm looking at the Wikipedia, but there's not a lot about it. There's a lot of backstory for Roanoke. John White failed to locate his colonists in 1590. His report suggested they had simply relocated and might yet be found alive. However, it served Walter Raleigh's purposes to keep the matter in doubt. So long as the settlers could not be proven dead, he could legally maintain his claim on Virginia. So it sounds like it might be
I think
a
that's
political issue.
That's what sounds political. It's just like they didn't the guy, so they're like, you know what, let's just pack our shit in the middle of the night and get the fuck out of here.
Or he had them killed and hidden. And
how many does it say how many it was that were estimated to be missing?
Let me see.
It had to have been somewhat small. It wasn't like 1,000 people or anything. Because this is one of the first settlers.
I saw it earlier, but I can't remember.
I'm going to say that that's one of those, they packed their,
115 columnists it said, yeah.
115? Yeah, they just all had a super secret meeting one night, and they're like, let's pack our shit and leave, man. We don't like this dude. That's my theory on that one.
Yeah. Either way, I think it's
or Indians attacked, because that was happening back then too. Maybe some Indians just came up and were like, Pocahontas and her people came up and were like, you're on our land, and next thing you know, they're in a fucking stew or something.
The next one is the Sauter children. Have you ever heard of that story?
I haven't heard of that one.
On Christmas Eve, I'm going to read the Wikipedia because it's very in-depth. And then I burped. Sorry about that. On Christmas Eve, 1945, a fire destroyed the Sauter home in Fayetteville, West Virginia. At the time, it was occupied by George Sauter, his wife Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children. During the fire, George, Jenny, and 4 of the 9 children escaped. The bodies of the other 5 children have never been found. The Sauters have believed for the rest of their lives that the 5 missing children survived somehow. They never rebuilt the house. Instead, they converted it to a memorial garden. In the 50s, as they came to doubt that the children had perished, put up a billboard along State Route 16 with pictures of the 5 offering a reward from information that would bring closure to the case. It remained up until shortly after Jenny Sauter's death in 1989. So when the mom died in 1989, it finally came down.
Wow, so that billboard stayed up for like 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
From sometime in the 50s to 1989.
Wow. That's dedication. That's a mother looking for her child, unlike Leochi's mother who just fucking moves away 6 months after. That's a mother right there.
In support of their belief that the children survived, the Sauters have pointed to a number of unusual circumstances before and during the fire. George disputed the fire department's finding that the blaze was electrical, noting that he had recently had the house rewired and inspected. He and his wife suspected arson, leading to theories that the children had been taken by the Sicilian mafia, perhaps in retaliation for George's outspoken criticism of Benito Mussolini and the fascist government of his native Italy. State and federal efforts to investigate the case further led to no new information. The family did, however, later receive what may have been a picture of one of the boys as an adult during the 60s. Their one surviving daughter, along with their grandchildren, have continued to publicize the case into the 21st century, and in the media and online.
So he had ties somewhat to the Sicilian mafia, not as being a mobster, but being so adamantly against them and outspoken. I could see where this could be a mob thing.
Basically, here's what happened on the evening of the fire. They were celebrating on Christmas Eve. Marion, the oldest daughter, had been working at a dime store in downtown Fayetteville. She surprised her 3 younger sisters, Martha, Jenny, and Betty, 12, 8, and 5, with new toys she had bought for them there as gifts. The younger children were so excited that they asked their mother if they could stay up past what would have been their usual bedtime. At 10 p.m., Jenny told them they could stay up a little bit longer, as long as the 2 oldest boys who were still awake, 14-year-old Maurice and his 9-year-old brother Luis, remembered to put the cows in and feed the chickens before going to bed themselves. Her husband and the 2 oldest boys, John, 23, and George Jr., 16, who had spent the day working with their father, were already asleep. After reminding the children of those remaining chores, she took Sylvia, too, upstairs with her and went to bed together. The telephone rang at 12:30 a.m. Jenny woke and went downstairs to answer it. It was a woman whose voice she did not recognize, asking for a name she was not familiar with. With the sound of laughter and clinking glasses in the background, she told the caller she had reached the wrong number. Later recalling the woman's weird laugh, she hung up and returned to bed. As she did, she noticed that the lights were still on and the curtains were not drawn, 2 things the children normally attended to when they stayed up later than parents. Marion had fallen asleep on the living room couch, so Jenny assumed the other children who had stayed up later had gone back up to the attic where they slept. She closed the curtains, turned out the lights, and returned to bed. At 1 a.m., Jenny was awakened by the sound of an object hitting the house's roof with a loud bang, then a rolling noise, assuming like a Molotov or something like, you know. Mm-hmm. After hearing nothing further, she went back to sleep. Another half hour, she woke up again smelling smoke. She got up again and found that the room George used for his office was on fire around the telephone line and fuse box. She woke him, and he in turn woke his older sons. Both parents and 4 of their children, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr., escaped the house. They frantically yelled to the children upstairs, but heard no response. They could not go up the stairway as it was already aflame. John Sauter said in his first police interview after the fire that he went up to the attic to alert his siblings sleeping there, though he later changed his story to say that he only called up there and did not actually see them. Efforts to find, aid, and rescue the children were unexpectedly complicated. The phone did not work, so Marion ran to a neighbor's to call the fire department. A driver on the nearby road had also seen the flames and called from a nearby tavern, but they were unsuccessful, either because they could not reach the operator or because the phone there turned out to be broken. Either the neighbor or the passing motorist was eventually successful in reaching the fire department from another phone in the center of town. George, barefoot, climbed the wall and broke open an attic window, cutting his arm in the process. He and his sons intended to use a ladder to the attic to rescue the other children, but it was not in its usual resting spot against the house and could not be found anywhere nearby. Isn't that odd that the
This is
ladder
very
would be gone?
odd.
from its normal place. A water barrel that could have been used to extinguish the fire was frozen solid. George then tried to pull both of the trucks he used in his business up to the house and used them to climb to the attic window, but neither of them would start despite having worked perfectly the previous day. Isn't that also odd? That all of a sudden both vehicles don't work.
This is a mob hit. Through and through. This is a mob hit.
Frustrated, the 6 Sodders who had escaped had no choice but to watch the house burn down and collapse over the next 45 minutes. They assumed the other 5 children had perished in the blaze. The fire department, low on manpower due to the war and relying on individual firefighters to call each other, did not respond until later that morning. The next day that Chief Morris said that the already slow response was further hampered by his inability to drive the fire truck, requiring that he wait until someone who could drive was available. Oh, well, that's shitty.
Yeah.
Firefighters, one of whom was a brother of Jenny's, could do little but look through the ashes that were left in the Sodders' basement. By 10 a.m., Morris told the Sodders that they had not found any bones, as might be expected if the children in the house had burned. According to another account, they did find a few bone fragments and internal organs, but chose not to tell the family. It has also been noted by modern fire professionals that their search was cursory at best. Nevertheless, Morris believed that the 5 children, unaccounted for, had died in the fire, suggesting it had been hot enough to burn the bodies completely.
That is a very eerie case. I'm not going to say that the children were taken before the house was burned. They could have perished in the house fire, but I do believe that that's some kind of hit. Especially since he had mob connections.
I can't find this in the Wikipedia, but I had heard somewhere else also that at some point, to try and convince them that the kids had perished, I think the police buried some pig body parts or something to try to convince them that was their kids.
The
I guess
police
so that
had mob ties too or something, or is it just
possible.
so that
I just think they wanted them to let it go.
Wanted them to let it go, okay.
Because they were still on about it. So, I still don't know about that one. Or it could just...
I have not heard of that one before. That's a creepy case, because, I mean, it's what, 3 children that were missing?
It's actually 4 or 5, I think.
Wow.
Let me see. Let me go back up so I can check.
That were never found.
Yep.
That mother had to have just gone absolutely crazy. I could see her wanting a billboard put up for that long.
Bodies of the other 5 children never been found.
5 children.
5 out of her 9 kids.
Wow.
In one go. Missing and not knowing what happened to them or anything. I think it could be mob, or it could even be as simple as somebody that thought, y'all got too many kids and I can't have any, so I'm going to just take some of them.
That happens. And especially now, you hear the cases of the pregnant women answering ads.
I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming human trafficking and that type of thing existed back then, or
I'm sure
pedophiles
it did.
in general.
Sure. I mean, since the beginning of time, there's always been, pedophiles. And, yeah. So. You hear of the pregnant women these days that are having their baby, their bellies cut open and their babies ripped out of them from crazy women who can't have kids.
This is the kids.
Aww.
And I think that's the billboard.
Wow. Yeah, I see that.
Anyway, it's just a really terribly sad story.
It really is. I feel so bad for the parents. And to go your whole life.
Next on the list is Aisha Degree. Have you ever heard of that case?
I haven't. I was just reading on it also. Wikipedia says that Aisha Jaquila Degree was born August 5th, 1990. Went missing at the age of 9 in Shelby, North Carolina. In the early morning hours of February 14th, 2000, for reasons unknown, she packed her book bag, left her family home north of the city, and began walking along nearby North Carolina Highway 18 despite heavy rain and wind. What is a 9-year-old doing walking?
In the middle of the night. That's what everybody finds so odd about it. Why
It
would
makes
she...
me wonder how her home life was, honestly.
Well, some people think there had to be somebody close to her that convinced her to leave the house that night.
Or she convinced herself after something was going terribly wrong. Several passing motorists saw her when one turned around at a point 1.3 miles from her home and began to approach her. She left the roadside and ran into a wooded area. In the morning, her parents discovered her absence. No one has seen her since. An intensive search that began that day led to the location of some of her personal effects near where she was last seen. A year and a half later, her book bag, still packed, was unearthed from a construction site along Highway 18 north of Shelby in Morganton. At the point where she ran into the woods, a billboard now stands appealing for help finding her. Her family hosts an annual walk from their home to the billboard to draw attention to the case. While the circumstances of Degree's disappearance at first seemed to suggest that she was running away from home, investigators could not find a clear reason she might have done so, and she was younger than most children who do so. They have speculated that she might have been abducted instead. The case has drawn national media attention. In 2015, the Federal Bureau of Investigation joined state and county authorities in a reopened investigation, offering a reward for information that could help solve the case. I think there's a reason that a 9-year-old would run away, and it's one that I absolutely hate to think of. I don't know her family. I don't know her background. But most 9-year-olds don't run away from home unless they have a really good reason to. Unsatisfactory home life. But some people, it says that some people think she was abducted, but if she was abducted, then what was she doing being seen on the side of the road? And the person turned around because they saw a child in the road and she ran off into the woods. If she had been abducted, it seems to me like she would be running to that car for help, not running away into the woods, because 9-year-olds get scared really easily. If it's the middle of the night, a 9-year-old girl is not going to run off into some deep, dark, scary woods.
I'm pretty sure they have investigated the family. I think it had to be some adult that she knew that, I don't know, pedophile or whatever.
So I'm not saying it was, mother, father, brother, sister, instant relation or anything, but I think something was happening to her, such as molestation, or there was a reason that she was running away. Uncle, cousin, family friend, it could be anybody. But I think something happened to her that was so traumatic that it made her want to pack a bag and leave. I want to know, it says that the construction site where her bag was found was on Highway 18, but it doesn't say how far away. It says north of Shelby and Morganton, but it doesn't say how far away that was. And that was a year and a half later. It was unearthed from a construction site. She could have ended up being abducted after running away. Yeah. She just happened to, wrong place, wrong time. She's a 9-year-old runaway, and she gets in a vehicle or someone picks her up. That, 1 in 100 serial killers, they say, she could have gotten in with the wrong person. It could have been the family friend or person that she was running away from that went out and found her, noticed that she was gone and jumped in their car and chased after her.
I don't think she was running away. I think someone convinced her to meet up with them. And I think it had to be somebody close to the family, because I think that's the only reason she felt safe in leaving, is because they were meeting at a specific location or something along those lines.
It had to be someone she knew.
I think somebody, a friend of the family member, whatever. It has to be somebody she trusted that took her. I really feel that.
I would think that if she hadn't been spotted walking on the side of the road and then running off into the woods, that's the one thing that makes me think that she had ran away and was running from something. Otherwise, I would think, abducted out of the house. But being that she was spotted on the road and then ran off into the woods, I want to know who that supposed witness was that saw that, how credible they are.
or if it's somebody that inserted themselves into the investigation on purpose because they feel like it deflects guilt from them.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases of that.
That was my thought on that too.
All right. Have you ever heard of the Dyatlov Pass incident?
No.
I hope I pronounced that right. It's the deaths of 9 hikers that was unclear what happened. It's
at the same time?
Yeah. But they were hiking in the northern Ural Mountains in former Soviet Union.
Oh, well, I mean Russia. There you go.
Between the 1st and 2nd February 1959. They were an experienced trekking group. They were all from Ural Polytechnical Institute. Had established a camp on the slopes in an area now named in honor of the group's leader, Igor Dyatlov. During the night, something caused them to tear their way out of the tents.
I have heard of this.
And flee the campsite, all while inadequately dressed for the heavy snowfall and sub-zero temperatures. It's another one of those rabbit hole cases where it's like, the more details you find out about, I'm not even going to tell you all of the stuff.
See, I'm
not going to go into great detail because the more you find out, the less it fucking makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It was a Yeti. It was Sasquatch. It was
a lot of people
or
think
Yeti.
It's somehow the Soviet government or something. Too.
That's a more plausible explanation. But I'm 100%.
Or UFOs.
I'm 100% going with Yeti on that.
It was aliens.
It was a Yeti, man. I'm telling you, like the Christmas Yeti from the old Rudolph cartoon that used to come on. It was that Yeti.
That
specific Yeti got them.
Okay, next we're gonna go ahead and skip on it. I'm not falling down that rabbit hole. Y'all can go on your own and look that up.
There's no need.
Oh yeah,
it was
I forgot to mention we already passed it. The Aisha degree. There's a really good episode on that on trace evidence that I listened to. That's the podcast that has a really good. There's several that have episodes on her, but that's probably the best one that I've heard is the one on trace evidence.
I'll give that one a listen. That's because
that case is weird. Yeah,
it's super weird, and having a daughter around that age, I just can't fathom a 9-year-old girl leaving home for any other reason than she is running away from something very traumatic, which is awful. And I pray that she's still alive and that someday that she's found and she can give a reason why. I really do.
Oh, the next case is one that I hate to even say the name because it's been done so much. Maura Murray. Have you heard of Maura Murray?
I have not. I may have. Some of these names, it's like the
you might recognize
like the Russian campers. Yeah. It's like, oh wait, yeah, I got that.
I almost hate to mention this one because it's another rabbit hole that the more you find out, the more you're just like, what the fuck happened? She disappeared on February 9th, 2004 after a car crash on Route 112 in Woodsville, New Hampshire, a village in Haverhill. Her whereabouts remain unknown. She was a nursing student completing her junior year at the University of Massachusetts Amherst at the time of her disappearance. So,
I've not heard of that one. I don't know that one.
That's the basics. She left campus, emailed her professors that she was taking a week off due to a death in the family, which according to her family was not true. So that right there is odd.
She ran away with somebody. She had a lover or something. That's my theory. She's going to make up an excuse to her professors to take off of school, and she's going to run away with somebody.
At 7:27 p.m., a local woman reported a car accident on a sharp corner of Route 112 adjacent to the local's home. A passing motorist also lived nearby, stopped at the scene asking the woman driving if she needed assistance. She declined, claiming to have called roadside assistance, which I don't think she did. Upon arriving home several minutes later, the motorist reported the accident to emergency services at 7:46 p.m., so only a few minutes have passed. The law enforcement arrived at the scene, but the woman had disappeared. So from 7:27 when the accident was first reported, and 7:46 she vanished.
20 minutes. That's long enough time for her lover or boyfriend or whatever to come pick her up.
Police traced the vehicle to Murray and initially treated her as a missing person on the belief that she may have wanted to disappear voluntarily.
That's what I'm thinking.
This speculation was based on her travel preparations, about which she had confided nothing to friends or family, and no obvious evidence of foul play. 2009, Murray's case was given to New Hampshire Cold Case Division, and authorities are handling it as a suspicious missing persons case. In the years after her disappearance, her case would receive media attention on 2020 Disappeared and significant online speculation on message boards and forums, with the theories ranging from abduction to voluntary disappearance. And there's a good, if you just look at there's a podcast just dedicated to just this case called Missing Maura Murray.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It's there's that much shit that...
Just on that little bit that you just said, my speculation is she wanted a new identity. She just wanted to start a new life.
She went to West Point but got expelled for shoplifting.
So she's a little cray-cray anyway.
And 3 months before her disappearance, she admitted to using a stolen credit card to order food from several restaurants. And the charge was continued in December to be dismissed after 3 months for good behavior. On the evening of February 5th, 2004, Murray spoke on the phone with her older sister, Kathleen, while she was on duty at her campus security job. They discussed Kathleen's relationship problems with her fiancé. Around 10:30, while still on her shift, it was reported that Murray broke down in tears. When her supervisor arrived at her desk, Murray was zoned out, no reaction at all, unresponsive. The supervisor escorted Murray back to her dorm around 1:20 a.m. When asked what was wrong, Murray said 2 words, "My sister." The contents of this call remained unknown until 2017 when Kathleen publicly explained the conversation. Kathleen, a recovering alcoholic, had been discharged from a rehab clinic that evening, and on the way home, her fiancé took her to a liquor store, which caused an emotional breakdown. Mm. The other things that I find odd about this is her dad had been in town to go car shopping with her because I believe she had wrecked her car. Or, no, there was a problem with her car. There was issues with her car, and he was in town.
Which could have been what caused the accident. There was a problem, like brakes went out or something.
There was a rag in her tailpipe, and some people speculate on that somebody stuck that there to try and cause her to break down.
Interesting.
Kind of choke out the car or whatever.
Yeah.
She basically borrowed her father's car while he was in town to go car shopping, and then she left a party drunk and struck a guardrail, causing nearly $10,000 worth of damage to her father's car. So
she has a bit of a wild streak in her to begin with, it sounds like. She sounds. I hate to diagnose her. No, but she sounds very bipolar.
Yeah. But a lot of people speculate that just she had a bunch of shit falling on her. She could have
sounds like a breakdown, disassociative, and
there was alcohol in the car. She had stopped at a liquor store and bought a bunch of alcohol to take with her.
But she left the alcohol in the car.
Yep. That's
after she wrecked, I assume, she's...
Yep. So I don't know. Honestly,
I'm going to say that's a case that I want to go away. I'm tired of this life. I'm going to go start a new one. And she seems like the type that's able to do that. A lot of bipolars end up having dissociative episodes, and next thing you know, they're by choice, they just disappear and take on a new name and go start a new life somewhere.
I think that's possible, but I think also there's just
what year was this? When was this?
2004.
Okay, so it's been almost 20 years. Seems like after that long, she would get in touch with someone to be like, hey, you know what? I've started a new life. But if her family life was that bad, but she did apparently have some kind of love for her sister. She was upset over that, so.
But they've never found her or her body or anything. It's in this day and age, it's really hard for somebody to just disappear
without a trace
because of social media and things like that.
True.
And she had a boyfriend also.
Did they question the boyfriend?
Huh?
I assume they questioned the boyfriend.
He was in college somewhere else, so he was
not a suspect.
As far as we know, he was not in town. So
okay.
But there's basically some local suspects, people that lived near the site of the crash that were questionable, that people thought that maybe somebody just took the opportunity. Here's this girl broke down the side of the road, let's get her.
Right.
You know? And then there's other people that think that there's some kind of police cover-up because there was a discrepancy there was I don't remember specifically, but there was some cop on that force that was having some problems, and there was a discrepancy in which vehicle made it to the scene because I think on record it's a different one that actually was on the scene because I guess they didn't want anybody to know that particular cop was there. Something along those lines.
Bizarre.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the gist of it, is that it was the wrong vehicle number or whatever on the report than what was actually there. And there was also a lot of people think that, your theory that she just wanted to get away and that there was a second driver driving behind her.
That's what I'm thinking. Somebody was, following her.
And that she ditched the car on purpose.
That could be.
And got in the vehicle with somebody else.
Especially since she didn't, when the person pulled over and asked her if she needed help, and she said no.
And she said she had already contacted roadside assistance,
which she hadn't.
True.
That makes me think she had somebody behind her that she was going to get in the car with anyway after she dumped that car.
Our last one, let me see. Last one on the list, Madeleine McCann. I think everybody knows about that case.
My theory is that I believe her parents had something to do with it, for the fact that what parents leave their child in a hotel room while they're on vacation and leave that hotel.
The way I've always heard it explained is it's a cultural thing because they were British, I believe.
I am friends with a ton of British people, and I can't think of one who would leave a child that young in a hotel room. I think they sold their own daughter to sex trafficking.
I actually disagree with that. I think what happened was, to try to get some alone time and stuff, they drugged them, because I think they did find out that they had been giving them possibly either Benadryl or something else. I can't remember exactly what, but I think they drugged the kids. They gave her too much that night, and then tried to cover it up. Think they overdosed her? Yeah, I think they overdosed her.
I think the parents 100% had something to do with it, whether they accidentally killed her, whether they killed her on purpose, or whether they sold her off to some Moroccan freaking sex drug ring. I don't know. I know the parents are involved. That's just a hunch I have, and just from the interviews I've seen with them, they're hiding something.
Yeah, most definitely. We didn't really explain anything about the case, but like I said, I think everybody
knows about Madeleine
And if you
McCann.
haven't, there's the thing on Netflix about it, or you can just look it up yourself. We're not going any further into that one because it's another one that's like...
It's a big rabbit hole.
Yeah, because there is a suspect sketch, but it's so generic that
it could be anybody.
Yeah.
It could be your next door neighbor.
Yeah. Other than that, nobody saw anything, and I just find the whole thing crazy. And I think there was something to do with their...
she was small enough they could have put her in a suitcase.
Didn't some cadaver dogs hit on their damn rental car?
I think so. It's been a while since I've researched the story, but
I think that was in the documentary. I'm not sure. But either way, something's not right.
She was young.
There.
She was, what, 4, I think?
I can't remember.
But she was a tiny thing. Like I said, they could fit her in a suitcase and get her out. They could drug her and get her in a suitcase and get her out of that hotel.
Probably get rid of her before they even reported it.
Exactly.
Honestly.
Oh, yeah. There's something extremely fishy about that story. About the parents' story. It doesn't add up to me.
I think that's all we got for today. I kind of shortened up the list because we were running out of time. We rambled a little bit too much on some things. We
love to ramble.
There's some that just had to have more said about them than others. But if we missed one of your favorite cases, one of the more famous cases, let us know, and we may do a future episode similar to this and cover some other ones. So let us know if we didn't cover your favorite, and
or if you have one that you think we haven't heard of that sounds interesting, shoot us an email.
And hit us up with your questions for the Q&A episode, which will be episode 10. Email us or message us on Facebook or our Instagram. Oh, yeah, we hit 200 on Instagram today. That's exciting.
That's
200
so exciting.
Followers.
We love
we're
you
getting
all.
there. We're getting there. Slowly but surely, we're getting there. We're coming to you. We're getting in your homes. We're going to...
And we'll get better. We're new at this. It's super fun. We enjoy it. We love having listeners, and we love hearing your feedback. And thank you for all the rave reviews that we've received so far. It's highly appreciated.
I think that's it. So I guess we need to end with our usual
talk hard.